Hey, everybody, welcome back to the SuperBake podcast. I'm your host, SuperBake. Let's talk about stuff. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. So, getting this up a little bit later than I originally intended, but today I'll be talking about the season finale for The Last of Us Season 2, episode called Convergence. Um, right out the gate, I'm just going to go ahead and say it just because this is going to be like my summary for season 2 as well as like my review for episode 7. So I'm going to give my review of the episode and then I'll give my overall thoughts on the season as a whole. Although I will say my thoughts on the season kind of parallel my thoughts on this episode, so I'll kind of get into that now. So this picks up after the last episode where we see the aftermath of Ellie killing Nora to try to get information about where Abby is at. And she meets back up with Jesse and Dina's character back at the movie theater. The opening scene was pretty brutal watching Jesse try to help Dina with her injury when she gets the arrow in the leg in the last episode. And we get like a little hint where Jesse kind of gets like sort of like a hint from Dina that she's pregnant when she refuses the alcohol. Man, that the scene where he's about to push the arrow through her leg reminded me of the scene from Lonesome Dove with one of the characters. Can't remember the character's name, where they have to push an arrow through his knee. Made me think a lot of that, except this was much quicker and you don't really see very much that happens. But that was a nice little hint that Jesse knows that Dina's pregnant. And then we see Ellie show up, and we see the effects that torturing Nora had on her, and we get a kind of a rehash from the scene from the game where Ellie takes her shirt off and Dina's like cleaning her wounds and stuff. Remember that scene from the game? That was a nice little moment between Ellie and Dina's character. And I do think Bella Ramsey does a pretty good job of showing the emotional impact that killing Nora has had on her character. So yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty faithful to the source material like the rest of the season's been up to this point. So I thought that scene was done pretty well for the most part. And we get to see Ellie and Jesse go off on their own, and then Jesse basically confirms with Ellie that Dina is in fact pregnant. And I kind of like how he kind of sort of tricks Ellie into saying it, but not really, because she's like, "Oh, you didn't know that," and he gets her to kind of confess to it. So we get more of like the one-on-one interactions with Ellie and Jesse in this scene. So that reminded me a lot of the game. I remember those missions where you get to go around with those two characters with Jesse basically as your partner. I don't remember if Dina got injured in the games from an arrow to the leg, though. I'm trying to think back, and I didn't watch the cutscene from the game for these, so I don't know for sure if that's what happens. I know she does get injured at one point, but I don't remember if it was from an arrow or not. As far as I'm aware, I don't think that happens. Uh, One thing that this leads to, there's this one scene where Jesse and Ellie run into a group of wolf soldiers that basically corner a Scar, like a young Scar kid. And then there's like six of them that are like they're like well armed and stuff. And like Ellie wants to like run out and try to take them out to save the kid, which I thought that was kind of stupid. Like I know Ellie's character is supposed to be very like brash and doesn't really think ahead like Dina does, but I didn't like that scene. Like Jesse has to stop her from going out there, and I just kept thinking like those are six well armed guys that are going to kill your ass if you go out there. Like what are you doing? Like you're going to risk your life for this guy you don't even know. Like I get that it's a kid, but still, it's like, what the hell are you doing? So that scene, yeah, that seemed really silly for her character to do that, especially just given everything that's going on. Like Dina is already badly injured. Tommy's there as well, but apparently he's fighting the wolves off on his own, which that's a whole other thing. I'll kind of get into that here in a little bit, but um, yeah, it's like you and like she and Jesse are trying to find Tommy, who's also there, and like I just don't. That just seemed like such a dumb risk for her character to take. So again, I don't remember if that was in the game or not. I don't feel like it was, but then again, I don't really remember that much. Um, we also get to see there's a scene with Isaac and one of his officers where he's talking more about Abby, and he says that like Abby is supposed to be the person who's going to take over the wolves whenever he's gone, and it seems to be hinted that Abby has gone AWOL. So we don't get a lot of details about it, other than that Isaac is telling his officer that both of them are probably going to be dead in the morning. So it seems like there's definitely some pretty crazy shit going on in the background that we don't get a lot of in this episode. I vaguely remember what happens in the game. It's been a while. I'd have to go back and check out the cutscene again. But It seems like something is definitely going on with Abby's character. She doesn't seem to be around, and it looks like Isaac is not sure where she is. So, and I would guess that that's what's going to play into the next season. So, also, just kind of like a side note, I guess the next season is actually going to be just season three. I thought it was going to be season two, part two, just because this is supposed to be the second part of the Last of Us story. But I guess apparently it is actually just going to be a full blown season three. So, yeah, I'm not going to get too much into that. I'll kind of talk about like how they hint at season three here shortly. But yeah, the scene with Isaac and his officer. I mean, kind of an interesting way to show that something's up with Abby's character, that she seems to be doing something that Isaac doesn't seem to approve of. Just the idea that, like, he's trying to like train her up to take his place, even though I don't remember if that was established at all prior in the season. I'm guessing when we get like Abby's perspective, I don't think that's much of a spoiler. It's in the game, but I'm guessing if we get Abby's perspective, like we'll probably hear more about that, see more of the backstory between these two characters. But it was kind of an interesting, vague little, I guess, story element between their two characters. But I don't know. Any scene with Isaac and Jeffrey Wright in it, I think, is always great in this show. Um, Another thing I noticed was, and there's one scene with Jesse and Ellie where she's about to go off to look for Nora, because it's revealed that she did get information out of, or not Nora, she's looking for Abby, because it's revealed that she got information from Nora that Abby apparently is at the aquarium, or at least might be at the aquarium in Seattle. And it's revealed in this one scene that Jesse actually voted against Ellie when they had the vote in Jackson to go get revenge for Joel. So I kind of like that. That was a nice little reveal for his character, that you would think that he'd be one of the people that would actually have her back in that situation. And it turns out that he actually was one of the ones that didn't vote for her, which just obviously pisses Ellie off. I do want to just talk about too the scene where Ellie is trying to get to the aquarium and she's going there by boat. There's like a storm going on in the background, and I get it. The aquarium is really far away, but like that just seemed really dangerous to me. Like I feel like there was a storm in the game too that you have to ride the boat through, if I remember correctly. But like that still seemed incredibly dangerous. It almost seemed like I don't think they really get hurricanes in Seattle, but like it seemed like hurricane level winds almost. And like at one point the boat actually like flips over. I just remember thinking like, yeah, maybe either wait for the storm to blow over or maybe find a different route. Like, yeah, it's a long walk, but it beats drowning. Um, and this leads to kind of a pretty intense moment where she ends up on this island because she loses control of her boat, and Ellie gets captured by a bunch of scars, and we see them about to use like one of their sickles to basically like essentially gut her, like what we saw in the previous episode. And even though I knew nothing was going to happen there, it was a pretty genuinely tense moment. Definitely painting the scars as like almost kind of like psychopaths, definitely like a cultish mentality with just how brutal they are, and how they don't seem to even like hesitate at killing, someone who's basically a kid. Like I think in the story, I think Ellie is supposed to be like 19 years old. So I think this definitely showcases like how cutthroat, like quite literally the scars are in this scene. Like they don't seem to show any remorse in that scene, even though we kind of knew Ellie's not going to die here. But still, I mean, they had her in the noose, and like she kind of just lucks out because Isaac's soldiers show up. So I always kind of find scenes like that funny in shows, like where the main character kind of just gets lucky. Like, man, the only reason you are even alive right now is because of this outside factor that totally saved your ass. It always makes me laugh when I see the main characters get lucky in situations like that in shows. But this does culminate in Ellie eventually getting to the aquarium, and it leads into one of the more infamous scenes from the game, which I'll kind of get into. And this is going to be where a pretty big issue I have with this episode comes into play. So Ellie goes into the aquarium, and if you play the game, you know exactly what's going to happen. And if you haven't and you don't know what and you don't want to know, here's a big spoiler coming up for the story. But Ellie goes in there, and Owen and Mel are in there from episode two. And they're talking about Abby, and then Ellie basically walks in and jumps them with a gun, or holds them at gunpoint, I guess I should say, and wants them to tell her where Abby is. And it plays out for the most part just like the game, where she wants both of them to point separately on a map to make sure that what they tell her matches up. All that's fine, but the issue that I have with this scene is the way it plays out in the show. It plays out a little bit differently from how it does in the game, but it feels like the implication is very different. So in the game, the way what happens is there is a scuffle. Owen tries to get the gun from Ellie, and Ellie ends up shooting and killing Owen. And then she gets attacked by Mel right after she kills Owen, and Ellie ends up stabbing Mel in the neck. And then when she does that, it's revealed that Mel was actually alive, and Abby is horrified because she's now killed not just two people that were with Abby, but she's also killed, an innocent person, a child, an unborn child. In the show, the way they handle this is Owen tries to pull out a gun from the desk right next to him. And before he can pull up the gun to shoot, Ellie shoots him in the neck. Well, the bullet goes through his neck, killing him, but it also it's either his neck or his chest, I can't remember, but it basically kills Owen immediately. And it just barely clips Mel's neck, but I guess it hits like her jugular and she just starts bleeding out. And then there's this whole scene, which I will give the show credit. This was a pretty heavy scene, even though this wasn't in the game, where Mel wants Ellie to try to basically cut out her baby so she can save it, that was not something that was in the game, and I will say that was pretty brutal. I was not expecting the show to go quite that dark. So yeah, that was definitely that was a pretty messed up scene to watch. And then just watching Mel kind of fade away as she's trying to give Ellie instructions, and Ellie just is so terrified and just so horrified at what she's done that she doesn't know what to do. The issue that I have with this scene is the fact that in this scene it was an accident. In other words, Ellie killed Mel and she didn't really mean to. In the game, it was more of a mistake on Ellie's part. She does kill Mel, but it's because Mel attacks her. Now, this is no way justifying what happens here, but like in the game, at the very least, you can make the argument that Ellie showed up and kind of put herself in that situation. Now, granted, she did it for reasons that I think most people can understand, but she shows up and she holds the two people at gunpoint and she gets attacked by Owen and then Mel. And then in the scuffle, in the chaos, she ends up killing Mel and then realizes afterwards that she was pregnant. And of course, this horrifies Ellie in the game. But in the show, it's all just one big accident. She kills both of them in one shot. She shoots Owen and then she accidentally kills Mel in the process. So it kind of feels like it takes some of the. It kind of feels like it's almost like the show's way of taking some of the responsibility off Ellie's shoulders. Like in the game, there was this sense of like repercussions to Ellie's actions. Like she was going to get revenge for Joel. And I feel like this has been a major theme of the story is that nobody wins in with a revenge. Like Abby went after Joel for revenge for her father. But we see in her face after she kills him, she doesn't feel like she gained anything from it. You know, it's like that. Is it the saying from Gandhi? Like if the entire world adopts the eye for an eye adage, then the whole world ends up blind. I think it's kind of like that, where the idea is like there is no winner in revenge. Everyone loses. Abby kills Joel, which brings her no comfort, but it also brings pain to people close to Joel, like Tommy and Ellie. And now Ellie is after Abby and her friends, killing them, but now Ellie is not getting anything out of it, and now she's horrified. And I'll give Bella Ramsey credit. The way she starts to hyperventilate in this scene and starts to panic, even as Tommy and Jesse show up to try to comfort her and get her out of there. I think Bella Ramsey did a pretty good job with how that was with that scene and how I feel like most people would respond to that situation because it is such a horrible, messed up moment. I just didn't agree with the fact that they made it an accident instead of just making it like a mistake, like it was in the game, where in like her rage trying to take down Owen, she also takes down Mel with him. The fact that it's an accident, it almost kind of makes it seem like now more of the pressure is off Ellie's shoulders because she accidentally killed both of them at the same time. Even though the thing is, she's the one that chose to go after them for revenge. Yes, you could make the argument that you can understand where she's coming from, but it doesn't necessarily justify her actions. It doesn't justify what Abby did either, but that's the point. There is no justification for revenge. Revenge is just that. It's ugly and it's violent and it ends with people suffering. So I did not agree with this. I felt like this kind of undermined what they were trying to the message they were going for in the game. So I was not a fan of how they handled that scene. I mean, otherwise, the way they handled Mel actually dying and fading away, I thought was an interesting take. I just didn't like the fact that they made it an accident in the show. So that was something that I was not a big fan of. And then after that, we get kind of a quiet moment between Ellie's and Jesse's character as they talk to each other. And I do like that we get this pretty nice peaceful moment between these two characters, even though, of course, it ends in tragedy. As soon as we saw this with them back at the movie theater with Tommy, I knew immediately what was coming. And then, of course, this leads to Jesse getting taken out by Abby. And then the final scene is basically Abby holding Ellie at gunpoint. And then she delivers the infamous line from the game where she says that Ellie wasted the fact that she let her live. And then basically it fades to black. And setting up for season three, it looks like now we're going to see things from Abby's perspective. Like we see Abby basically before the events of Ellie coming after her and her group. We see her back in Seattle at the Wolves base. We see her apparently about to go meet Isaac for a meeting, and then it kind of cuts away, and then basically setting up for what's going to happen in season three. So apparently the next season is going to be from Abby's perspective while Ellie is kind of in the background. So reverse of what we got in this season. So pretty much kind of how we got in the game. So overall, I would say with this episode is reflective of the entire season, in my opinion. It's kind of tonally, it's a little bit all over the place, and the writing feels like a bit of a mess. Um, I do like the scenes with Ellie and Jesse. These felt like genuinely nice scenes between these two characters, kind of seeing them work out some of their differences, seeing Jesse come to terms with the fact that he's going to be a father in this, this messed up post apocalyptic world. And we kind of get more of his backstory too, like where he talks about this girl that was part of this group that passed through Jackson that he liked, and I don't remember if that was something that was in the game, but it was nice to get his character fleshed out a little bit more, even though ultimately he does end up dying. Like I really like the actor that plays Jesse. I thought he did a really good job of capturing the character from the game. As far as negatives go with this, I would say, like I said, I talked about Ellie and the confrontation between her and Owen and Mel. I wasn't a fan of that. Also, just something I didn't mention this before, but kind of a side note. In the episode, they hear gunshots in the distance and they realize that it's Tommy with a sniper rifle taking out several wolf soldiers. Um, I remember that was a major story element in the game, and I assume that they're going to go more into this with Abby's story. But again, I feel like the fact that Tommy was not in the scene with Joel when he died, it kind of makes it feel like this is a little bit strange. Like, so he went with Jesse to find Ellie, and then Tommy just decided to go off on his own to just start sniping wolf soldiers. I didn't really quite get that. Like in the game, it makes more sense because even though Tommy was reluctant to go after Abby's group, Ellie does convince him to do it. But because he was there, because he actually witnessed Joel get killed, and because he knows what Abby and Owen and Mel and the others look like, he can go after them. He knows like where to find them. Now it's like he's just hunting random wolf soldiers. And especially since he's there to find Ellie, essentially to escape from there, that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. So him being off on his own, shooting wolf soldiers, for me personally, I just didn't really quite understand that. It didn't seem like it fit narratively with his character, especially since he seemed to be one of the characters from the beginning who was telling Ellie not to go through with this. And now all of a sudden he's okay with it. And it's only been like a couple of days. I just kind of found that to be a little bit hard to believe. But I've said this before. I did not like the fact that he was not there to see Joel's death. It felt like it took away a major element of his character that was supposed to be there in the game. It was a major plot point, and it feels like it's kind of just been, it feels like the show really kind of missed the point of that. So that, along with Owen and Mel's death, just it felt like two changes from the game that I just really did not agree with. Yeah, I would say this episode just, especially since the last episode, I really enjoyed it. This one definitely felt like a pretty considerable step down, and I was not a fan of this as far as like how the season is going to go out. Now we are going to have another season coming up, so maybe they'll be able to fix some of the things in this that I didn't agree with. But I don't know. Right now, I don't know if the writers are going to do that. I hate to say that I don't have a lot of faith in them, but yeah, this didn't really give me a lot of hope for the next season. So, as far as that goes, I would say with this episode, I thought that this was a fairly weak way to end the season. I was not a big fan of it. So now I'll get to my overall thoughts on season two. Um, like I said before, the entire season feels fairly uneven, both from a writing perspective and just tonally as well. Like, there are some episodes that I really liked. I loved episodes 3 and 4 and 6. The cinematography in those episodes, like especially in 3, like when they go to the graveyard and you see her saying goodbye to Joel at his grave. Episode 6 with the flashback was great. I loved seeing the flashback with Joel's character and him spending time with Ellie and them going through their what happened in season 1 and then slowly trying to rebuild their relationship. And then when you see like the hopes that maybe they might be able to do it, then it makes what happens in episode 2 all the more tragic. But a lot of other stuff in the season that I just don't think was handled as well as it could have been. Joel's death in episode 2 felt really off to me. It felt like it dragged on quite a bit, and I was not a fan of that. It felt like it lacked the emotional weight that it needed to have in the game. And I am just going to go ahead and say it. I do think Bella Ramsey and Caitlin Dever are miscast in their respective roles. Now, I do think that they do a really good job with what they're given. I think Bella Ramsey is able to bring the emotional depth to Ellie's character that she needs. The scenes where she really needs to deliver the heartfelt, gut wrenching moments, I think she does a good job of. Like, for example, in episode 3, when she goes into Joel's closet and sees his jacket and she starts crying. I thought the flashback episode between her and Joel was very sweet and also tragic, and it gave us like that glimpse of like the hope that they could rebuild the relationship. In particular, the scene where Ellie and Joel are talking about what really happened, and he finally confesses the truth to her. I thought Pedro Pascal and Ramsey both did a wonderful job in that scene. Like, she does a great job with what she's given. And I think Caitlin Dever, even though she's not in very much of this season, I do still think she does a good job with what she's given. But to me, I just felt like Caitlin Dever, I actually kind of think she would have been a better pick for Ellie. She looks quite a bit like Ellie, and I don't know, just I've seen her in other projects, and I think that she could also bring a lot of emotional depth to the character. So I like both actresses. I think they both do a good job. I don't think these roles, I don't think they fit these roles specifically, but I don't think they're bad. I've seen some reviews online with people saying that they think that both actresses are bad, and I just completely disagree with that. Like, I think maybe some people might be confusing miscast with bad actress, and the two are different. You can be cast in a specific role and not fit it, but still be a good performer, and that's what I think is happening with this season. And then I think also too, I think in terms of the timeline, I think the show follows the game relatively closely in terms of like how many days, like day 1, day 2, and all that stuff. But like, I think because it's a show and not a game, it does kind of feel like the pacing feels a little bit off. I remember I just kept thinking this season, like, oh wow, we're already at Seattle, like we're already at the scene where Ellie is where she finds Mel and Owen. It just felt like, I guess because I was used to the game, it felt like that should have taken longer. I think it's because in the game, again, even though it takes place over the course of a few days, because you're playing the game and you have to take longer to advance the story and you spend more time with these characters, it kind of feels like the pacing flows a little bit better because that's how the game was developed. It was developed that way. It was written and structured and acted that way to where you spend more time with these characters and you get to know them better. And in the show, because they have less time to work with the story, with the source material, you don't get quite as much time. So yeah, that it just kind of feels like the pacing of the show of this season in particular just feels a little bit off from what it was in the game. I guess in general, like my overall thoughts are like when it comes to the games, I love The Last of Us Part 1. I like The Last of Us Part 2, although there are elements of it that I didn't like that much, but I do like the gameplay. But it did feel like a step down from the first game, in my personal opinion. Like I appreciate the game's willingness to handle more heavy subject matter like themes of revenge and forgiveness, but I just felt like the first game was just better, in my personal opinion. I like Joel and Ellie as characters. I thought that they played well off of each other. And I just felt like I feel like in the second game, they kind of lost some of that character, I guess. And season two feels quite a bit like that. Like the first season, again, I thought was really great with Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey traveling across the country together. And then season two feels like a noticeable step down. But I mean, I kind of went into this expecting that to be the case. Like, The Last of Us Part 2 is a pretty contentious game, so I kind of figured going into season 2 of the show that it was going to get a lot of hate. In my opinion, I think it's just kind of okay. It's definitely uneven for sure, and I would even go so far as to say it's a bit messy. Definitely a lot of episodes don't flow very well, but I do think the stuff that's good is actually genuinely good. Like I mentioned before, episodes 3, 4, and 6 are actually pretty good. And like especially 6. 6 was my favorite episode of the season and one of my favorite episodes of the series. It's just the rest of the episodes are just kind of okay. I guess that's the best I can really say about them. So as far as whether or not I would recommend this show, I guess I would say if you're a fan of the games and you just want more Last of Us material, then I would say, yeah, check it out. I think there's definitely something here to enjoy, if for no other reason than to just compare it to the games and kind of see like what changes there are and like what they left the same and what they what they changed for the sake of the show. Although I do think some of the changes definitely don't work in terms of the story. If you're not a fan of the games though, I really don't think that this series is going to give you much. Maybe the first season, possibly, especially if you enjoyed the first game, but season 2, I don't know if there's enough here to really recommend if you're not a fan of the game and you don't really know much about the story. I don't know. It's really hard to recommend otherwise. If I had to give it an overall letter grade, I guess I would probably say maybe like a C plus. I don't think that this show is like god awful. It's just uneven. But we'll see how season 3 goes. Technically, season 3 is going to be a continuation of this story, so maybe I think they said production is supposed to excuse me, start next year like in 2026, so maybe the writers will address some of the issues that people have had with this season, but time will tell. Again, with the fact that I still don't think Caitlin Deaver fits the role of Abby has me concerned for the next season, but I do think that I think she is a talented enough actress that I'm still willing to give her the benefit of the doubt and see how she carries this out, especially since the next part of the story is going to be from her perspective. So I'm going to reserve judgment until I get to that point. But judging this season on its own, I would definitely say this feels like a considerable step down from season 1. So those are my overall thoughts on The Last of Us season 2. So now I'm going to talk about the trailer that just premiered for the reboot of King of the Hill. I believe I've talked about this in a previous podcast episode like a while back. Not the trailer, but just like the idea of like a King of the Hill reboot that had been confirmed, but nothing else had been known about it. Man, it is really wild seeing the actual footage, seeing that trailer play to the exact same theme of the original show. I've been going back and rewatching King of the Hill on Hulu because the entire series is on there. It's one of my favorite animated sitcoms ever. Man, that trailer for the reboot really like gave me so many emotions in such a short amount of time. Like both joy that it's coming back, but also sad because like how much time has passed. Because I guess the idea with this new show is that basically all the characters have aged the amount of time that they would have aged since the show ended, like in like what the late 2000s, like something like 20 years or something like that. Like Hank and Peggy are now like in their 60s and they're retired. Bobby's an adult and apparently like he's like a chef that works in Dallas. I kind of read a little bit of like the synopsis and stuff like that. So like just seeing the characters and how much they've aged and changed like physically was just like it really made me feel old just watching this, but I'm very excited about this. So release is August 4th of this year, so we officially have a release date, and apparently it's going to be 2 seasons on Hulu. Now I don't know if both seasons are going to release at the same time. I would think so, but yeah, it's still just wild that this is actually happening. And just watching the opening trailer for that they have for it. I don't know if this is actually officially going to be the opening for the show or if this is just like the teaser for the show itself, but we get a decent amount of information just watching that. Like it shows that like apparently the hills moved away from Arlen at one point because there's a part where like it actually shows him with like a moving van and stuff like that, and it shows Bill crying in the alley. I looked this up. Apparently, like I guess the synopsis is that Hank and Peggy went to go live slash work in Saudi Arabia because I guess Hank was working on selling Saudi Arabia propane and propane accessories or something like that. And then I guess they come back to Arlen during their retirement years. And I guess apparently somebody else moves into the Hills home. I don't know if it's supposed to be like Hank's counterpart that works at the same company as him. I guess that's what people are saying, but it's just interesting. It's weird because you see like another guy standing with the guys in the alley and stuff like that. Also, there is like a nod to the pandemic because at one point you see the guys all wearing like masks. And I love that Dale is like not wearing a mask. That is, to me, that is such a classic Dale move. Of those guys, he would absolutely not wear a mask. So I thought that that was just really funny that they had that little tidbit in there. And then at one point, Bill's gone. Well, I think it's like during that mask scene. So it kind of makes me wonder if he got COVID. I could see Dale giving Bill COVID just because Dale hates Bill so much. And then at one point, Dale is like the mayor of Arlen because there's a point where it says he has a sign in the yard and it says like vote for Dale. So yeah, a lot of stuff happens in this trailer. So I'm very excited to watch this. If it comes or when it comes out, I'll probably give like a review for like maybe like the first season that I watched for the show. But right now I'm going back and rewatching the old series just because it's oh god, it's one of my favorites. Like Like I'm a little over halfway through season 1, and it's a little bit rough just because it's came out in, like, the late '90s, I think, like 96, 97. So, like, the animation's a little bit rough, the voice acting, for the most part, sounds pretty much how they do, like, in later seasons. Bobby sounds a little bit awkward. He mostly just kinda says, like, just, "Okay." I love that freaking voice, but Hank, for the most part, sounds exactly like he does in later seasons. Although I did notice Hank is definitely a lot angrier in the first season than he is in later ones. He definitely seems like he's more mellowed out and kind of the voice of reason as the show went on. But in the first season, he definitely seems like he's pretty angry, just like everybody. God, I love King of the Hill. There's just like so many great episodes in that show. Maybe I'll do like a top 10 episode sometime, like after I've watched it, or rewatched it, I guess I should say. But like, God, that show is so great. I remember there was an episode where they got Brad Pitt to play Boomhauer's brother, which killed me. I love the fact that like of all the celebrities they could have gotten, they got Brad Pitt to play Boomhauer's brother. And he's just like an absolute just fucking sleazeball. Like he just sleeps with women. Like he's even worse than like Boomhauer is. Like it's really bad when Boomhauer is like more faithful and responsible than like somebody else when it comes to like women in relationships. So that was a funny. I always loved that episode. And just hearing like Brad Pitt talking Boomhauer's voice always killed me. Also, I forgot, like, the way Hank talks about certain situations and just, like, the way he describes things, like, there's an episode, like, where he's cleaning out the toaster in their kitchen, and, like, he refers to he's like, he goes, "Peggy, I am decrumbing the toaster." I've never heard somebody refer to it as decrumbing the toaster, like, I've seen, like, people clean out their toasters, like, I've done it, but I've never called it that. I've never heard somebody refer to it like that, but, of course, Hank would do that. I love that. And that freaking Hank Hill voice. What was it? There's another episode where he smokes weed and he panics and he's like he tries to like make himself throw up and he's just like the guy's like, "What are you doing?" And Hank's like, "I am inducing vomiting." I love the way he pronounces certain words. Oh my god. There's so many great episodes in that show. Just Hank, and I just love how Hank is always just annoyed with just like, especially Bobby, just in general, like just everything Bobby does just seems to bother Hank. Like I love the episode where they go to Louisiana and they spend some time with like I think it's Bill's family or something like that. Bill's extended family or something, and Bobby, they start calling Bobby Robert, and then they give him like just fancy clothes, and Bobby starts acting like he starts talking with like that Louisiana like Cajun accent, I guess. And like he's just like and then Hank just gets so irritated with him. Like he's like, Bobby, what are you doing? And then Bobby's like, oh, I'm just shuffling off toward the living quarters. And away we go. And then Hank's like, damn it, I specifically told Bill not to give him that hat. And then at one point he like throws Bobby's like the fancy clothes they give him, he throws them out the window. I love that. He's like, this flower is wilted. I love how irritated Hank gets with Bobby, just everything that he does. Like, especially, like, I think it's that first episode when, like, child services is threatening to take Bobby away, and Bobby is just, like, messing with Hank the entire time, like, he's just, like, using his golf club to, like, clear dog shit out of the yard and stuff. It's just like, man, Hank is way more patient than I think most parents would be. If that were me, I would be so fucking furious. One of my all-time favorite lines from that show that I always quote constantly is when it's this episode, I think, when Hank is gone and Peggy and Bobby cook a bunch of burgers using like charcoal instead of propane. And they do it because he's not there because they know that Hank will just flip out if he finds out. And he comes back and he finds out what they've been doing and he's like, look, Peggy, look at my boy. There's soot on my boy's fingers. You don't get soot from a clean burning fuel. And then Bobby goes, yeah, you don't get the smoky, delicious taste either. And he's like, shut your mouth. Oh my God. I fucking love that show. Just so many great lines with Hank Hill. Oh my god, the episode where he has to go to anger management because the he cuts off Dale's finger with a circular saw. That's like also one of my favorite episodes. The guys dig like a tunnel under the street and there's a garbage truck coming and Hank is like he goes basically Hulk mode on them and starts screaming at them. I love that. I don't have an anger problem. I have an idiot problem, which is like one of the most relatable lines I think I've ever heard in my life. Just it's like Hank is like the babysitter for like all of his friends who are just a bunch of idiots and stuff. God, I love that show. I really can't wait for this. And it is kind of sad though, because I guess the voice actor that played Dale Gribble, I think he passed away a couple of years ago. I'm not sure when that was exactly. So that's kind of sad. I heard Dale talk in the trailer, and I don't know if the voice actor who played him was able to record his lines um, before this trailer premiered. But I mean, if it is his replacement, I mean, it sounds just like him, at least from what I could hear. But that is sad though. Like I really hated to hear about that, just because Dale is he's such an iconic voice, and he's one of my favorite characters on the show. But yeah, I'm excited about this. I cannot wait for this series to come out. Like, I love King of the Hill. It's always had a special place in my heart. I remember, like, when I first watched it, I was probably, like, in, like, elementary, middle school, and, like, I wasn't really that into it. I couldn't really get into the humor, but as I got older, and especially once I got into high school, like, I could not get enough of it. Like, it was on, like, Cartoon Network, like, in the evenings, and I would always watch it, like, at 9:30, 10 o'clock, or whenever the hell it came on, and yeah, it really grew on me, and it's become, like, one of my all-time favorite, like, animated sitcoms, so I'm excited to see, like, what they do with this. I am also curious to see, like, Mike Judge's take on some more current events and kinda see, like, how Hank Hill and his family navigate through that. I think it's gonna be interesting. I mean, it's from the same people, from the same writers and stuff, so I think this show is in good hands. So there's no doubt in my mind that this is gonna be, at the very least, this is gonna be entertaining to see. So I will definitely tune in and give my thoughts on this podcast whenever it comes out. And with that, I think that's going to conclude tonight's episode. Once again, if you like what you heard, I am on Anchor, Spotify, and YouTube. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the show out a lot, and I definitely appreciate all the support. And I'll catch you all next time. Later.